What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this I'm going to be talking about what's going on with SPY and Tesla and the QQQ and many stocks out there. I'm going to break down Ford and Neo, not to mention Nvda and Apple and a couple of others. I'm going to talk about what's happening with the markets right now, what the technicals are telling us, why the market is just range bound for the time being, and what's likely going to come moving forward. And before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 10 free stocks, and any could be a free Tesla or Neo share. The offer ends very soon, in just about 8 days, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. All right, so when it comes to the markets, we had a very interesting day. Lots of volatility. Well, not a crazy amount of volatility. We did see a big pump in the morning time, but then after that, we were just very tight. Not a whole lot of volatility, actually. Very tight. We were just range bound. Very boring day, back and forth almost for the entire day. And the real question is, how will the market move from here? Well, the truth is, even though the bigger trend is favoring the bears a little bit more, there's not enough confirmation for us to say that the market's going to just straight up tank from here, or the market's going to just see a massive rally. We're just stuck in the middle. And that's why it's very important to watch this from a level to level basis. And then once we see which level it breaks, that's going to give us confirmation of which direction is going to have a lot more conviction and a lot more strength. Now, to start us off, when it comes to the markets, we have some earnings coming out. We have Campbell's, we have GameStop, and we have a couple of others. We also have DocuSign for Thursday, and then Neo for Friday. It's going to be a big one I'm watching. And then for the options chain for SPY, there's not a whole lot going on. The market could technically afford some downside for tomorrow or Thursday because, once again, there are not too many options. And the put to call ratios are just very flat. They're not extremely high like we saw last week. And that's why the market makers are not as incentivized to cause the market to squeeze as much on specifically on Wednesday and Thursday. Now, for Friday, they do have more of an incentive, but we will talk about that more later on. Now, for what's happening on Wednesday, there's not a whole lot of data coming out, just some mortgage applications data. We're going to learn more about imports and exports. That's going to be a little bit important, but that's going to happen in the pre-market, and that is some delayed data. Besides that, there's not much else coming out. The Fed is also going to be silent until the FOMC next week. And then for Thursday, we have initial jobless claims, and that's about it. We have more reports coming out for Friday, but not too much massive data is coming out. Things are cooling off just a bit. And until then, we just have to be very patient. So the market is now in a very annoying phase right now. When you zoom out, okay, we got this pump yesterday to 429, just under 430. And to zoom out even more, I mean, we did form this large like cup and handle. Let me just show you on the 4-hour time frame. There was this large cup and handle that was forming. We got the breakout out of it. So just right here, this cup and handle formed. Nice breakout. And the real question is the top in for the rally, or are we going to pump a little bit more? Well, the truth is, on the 4-hour time frame, the momentum is a little bit more in favor of the bears. And the reason for that is because we dropped down to about 426 today, then we bounced and established a lower high. But the question is the move even done yet? Could we just continue to pump to like an even higher level? It's a possibility, but we have to watch the levels. And the odds are still favoring that the market is going to get stopped out here and then just start to downtrend a little bit later on. But like I said before, I'm not going to be overconfident in any claim. The best thing to do is just be patient and then watch for the direction, because there's not too much like negative news coming out. There's not too much like good news coming out. We're just stuck in the middle. It's very annoying. We are technically and very possibly going to be making a lower high compared to this one. And if that is what's going to happen, there's going to be a high probability of a trend change. Now, if there is a trend change, we need to watch the levels for confirmation to know if we're truly going to see the market see a bigger drop. But here are the levels you need to watch for, which are very important. Okay. I wish I could predict this perfectly. It's just becoming very tricky because we are just stuck in the middle, back and forth and back and forth. And the best thing to do is just watch what happens as the market moves. There's not too much coming out that's going to move it tomorrow, except for some manipulation. Now, there's a possibility that the shorts are trying to pile in up here and they're just repositioning. It's a possibility. Is it a guarantee? Not really, but it's a possibility. Now, if that's the case, they could be getting ready to rug pull the markets. And if that happens, we're going to be watching for a retest of support zones, and then followed by a massive break of major support is what's going to confirm the trend change. Now, if we drop, okay, if the shorts are truly trying to rug pull the markets, you're first going to be watching this 428 support. I mean, it's not as significant as 427.5, but it's worth noting. Then we have 427.5. That's a very significant support. We just went around this for the entire day, back and forth and back and forth. If 427.5 breaks, watch 427, which is not that strong, and then the really strong support is going to be the 50 EMA. If the 50 EMA breaks, okay, this thing is going to retest 426. That's a very important support. I was calling this out yesterday. 426, watch it carefully. Notice how we touched it, then we just got a lot of buying pressure. Now, why did the market pump today? I forgot to mention this. That's because some economic data came out. I talked about this in the morning. The Economic Optimism Index report came out, and this was a little bit better than expected. So the economy is a little bit more optimistic than what on earth many analysts and economists were expecting. And this is why the market got such a positive reaction, started to pump even harder into the open. But now the question is, will we continue to pump? Well, the bullish case would be, you could argue that we're trying to form almost like a bullish triangle and we're going to continue going. That's a possibility. But the bearish case would be us, once again, Wall Street's just repositioning. They're going to try to rug pull us. So if we're bearish, the 50 EMA is going to be tested. If it breaks below this, watch 426. It's a very important support. If 426 breaks, there's this entire zone between 425 and 426, which has had a lot of chop. And if it breaks below 425, that is it. It's going to come down pretty hard to this gap into the low 420s. Now, some people have argued that this is looking like a head and shoulders. I'm not really seeing it. It doesn't look very clean. But hey, it's a possibility. It's worth noting. Now, if we're bullish, let's just say the bullish case ends up playing out. Okay? If we're bullish, you're going to be watching this resistance around this 428.5 zone. Notice how we touched it, rejected, touched it, rejected. We tried to break it at the very last second. Then we rejected again. And this could have been Wall Street getting ready to short the market. This could have been a big liquidity grab. It's a possibility, but it's not a guarantee. Now, you could argue that this is looking like a bullish triangle. If that's the case, we could pump more, right? It's always a possibility. But we need to break and hold 428.5. What do I mean by that? I'm not talking about like a false break. So what's a false break? This is a false break right here. This is like right here. This was a false break. I'm going to show you what this looked like. You could look at like the 30-minute or like a bigger time frame. Don't look at the 1 minute. You need to look at something better. This is a false break right here. So basically, this was a fake out that happened in the morning, right? We broke below 426. Do you guys see that? We touched 425.99 right here. But we didn't continue dropping. We didn't get a strong candle. It was just a quick touch and then a bounce right after as the buyers came in. So a lot of people basically had stops right here. And what they're doing is they're triggering stops to just absolutely annihilate people. That is what their plan is. And the market is designed to cause as much pain for as many people as possible. So that is an example of like a false break. That is not a clean break. And what I'm trying to tell you is if you want to turn bullish, we need a clean break, a very clean break above this 428.5 level. We need to hold it. We need to continue to, rally above it. And that's going to give us some bullish confirmation. Now, here's an example of a clean break. Like right here, for instance, we just soared past this 427.5 area. Like right here, we broke above it and we just managed to hold above it for an extended period of time. And that's how we managed to get all the way up to 428.5. So we're going to be watching for a very strong candle above 428.5 for an extended period of time, which could include like 30 minutes or even above that. But you want to watch the candlesticks. What are they looking like? Not just the 30-minute. You could look at that, but also you want to look at some smaller time frames simultaneously. So I like to look at both of them together like this. Like I have my 30-minute on the left and like the 5-minute or like the 3-minute on the right side, right? I usually do that. I also have many monitors. As long as you have at least 2 or 3, you're going to be fine. 2 or 3 like different charts at once. You could be fine. Even if you use like 1 or 2, you could still succeed at that, but it's trickier. But anyways, going back to the charts, you got to watch these levels carefully. They're super, super important. And let's just say hypothetically we end up holding above 428.5. If we hold it and break it, we're going to likely test the high we made right here. And if it breaks the high, it's going to see 430 pretty quickly. That's another possibility. Now, previously, I was leaning in the direction of that not happening and us potentially seeing some downside because of Wall Street manipulating the stocks. I am open to that, and I think it's a little bit more likely that that's going to happen, but I'm not as confident now seeing how this is holding up, how this is pumping. And what's interesting is we got a lot of bearish signals, right? I told you guys this in the morning. Not in the morning. Yesterday night, I told you we had some bearish signals because we formed this bearish divergence. SPY went from 429 all the way down to 425.99, and the bearish divergence did technically play out, but there's no guarantee that it's going to confirm a trend change. What's a trend change? When we start making lower highs and lower lows. We still need confirmation. That's why you have to watch these levels. Okay, so we don't have the true confirmation yet. That's why I'm still open-minded to either direction. And sometimes I have to make videos like this. I mean, I would love to predict everything, as much as I can. But I have to wait and see how we open in the pre-market. It's going to be much easier that way. And we'll just have to watch these levels. It's really that simple. For Tesla actually did a lot better than I thought it would. I was telling you guys yesterday that Tesla might see this bearish divergence play out, and then I told you guys that we could see it try to bounce around one of these levels, but I wasn't as sure about that. Now that did actually play out, but it happened intraday. It didn't last the whole day, and sometimes the market is very, very tricky. Sometimes these things happen. So I was telling you guys we had this bearish divergence, right? It was right here. If you look at the RSI, the MACD, and the price. What happened to Tesla? It went from 121, it came all the way down. It opened all the way down to 212. It dropped $9. That's a big drop for Tesla. It dropped pretty hard in the morning. But look at the level it bounced at. I told you guys, if it broke below 217 to 218, watch 214. If it broke below 214, watch 212.5. And if that failed us, it was going to come down to this imbalance zone between 209 to 210. Where did Tesla bounce? 212.5, almost exactly there, 212.53 to be exact, very, very close to that support. And instead, the data came out, the economic data from the optimism index, and Tesla liked it, the market liked it, the market bounced, Tesla started bouncing too. Tesla broke above 217 to 218, the resistance there, and it kept going. Once it broke 218, that was your confirmation that this thing was going to turn bullish, and it made its way all the way up to 220. Then I released an intraday video around this period when Tesla started selling off a little bit. And I told you guys, watch this 218 area. Tesla may hold this. And Tesla continued to hold. You could see how it was ranging here. It was very, very nice to see how it was bouncing between support and resistance. Then Tesla continued to push up, right? And I warned you guys, if it broke 221, this resistance, 221 right here, if it broke it, you got to watch 222.74, I believe is what I said, like right there. And if it broke that, we're going to see it get very close to 225. 224 to 225 is what I was watching. And if anything, it came very close in the after hours to 224. So it's still looking pretty strong. There's no signal of Tesla selling off just yet. And sometimes, like I said, it surprises you. Now, we are forming a bearish divergence right here, which is telling me that Tesla might cool off in the pre-market, but that does not guarantee anything about how it's going to move for the entire day, which means there's going to be a move to the downside likely by the time we open. It may cool off a little bit from 224, which means it may open around like 220 or maybe a little lower, but it could always bounce intraday depending on how the market moves. So I'd be very careful with this. If Tesla's very bullish, okay, let's just say it opens at 220. You want to see this thing break 222.74, break that. 224 to 225 is going to come, break that. So we have 227, 228.67, then 230. But 230 is going to be the strongest resistance of them all. 225 is a little bit more significant, but 230, excuse me, is going to be a lot more significant. If we're bearish on Tesla, okay, if we open at 220 and it starts coming down, watch 218 to 217, very significant chop zone. What do I mean by that? Look at the level like right here. Historically, Tesla's had a lot of chop here. Look at how much it was chopping and chopping and chopping between 217 to 218. If it ends up breaking below that, the levels, 214 is going to be significant, then 212.5, then 209 to 210. However, I'm in the middle for now. There's no confirmation of Tesla breaking down at the time I'm recording this, so I don't want to make any calls like that. But there is a bearish divergence developing, so it's a big red flag. And that means that eventually, yes, Tesla is going to make a move to the downside in the future, most likely. But I just don't know if it's going to happen yet. It could possibly just gap down, cool off in the morning, and then it could change directions later on tomorrow. But I just want to note that. For the QQQ, this was pretty crazy. This thing was just insane. Look at this sideways price action. It came down, it had a false break right over here. Check this out. 353 was the level I kept talking about yesterday. If we broke below this and held below it and got a clean break, this thing was gonna it was gone basically. It's gonna start, tanking. So what they did is they dropped it. They tricked a lot of these institutions, maybe other players out there, into thinking, oh, the market's going to crash. And what did they do? It was a fake break, and then we, pushed up quickly after. So it was a trap. And then the data came out. They knew, in my opinion, this is just a conspiracy theory. They knew the data was going to be good. They knew the market was going to pump. That's why they dropped it right before to trigger stops and then pump it up like crazy. That was all part of their game. And then they pumped it so hard to trigger more stops, and then they dumped it again. So back and forth and back and forth. QQQ was just trading sideways. So here's what you're going to be watching for. Now, I'm very concerned about the QQQ for the bulls because we technically have a head and shoulders forming, but you could always suspect that this is a trap. Is it a trap? I can't promise it. And the technicals are looking weaker on it, so there's a high probability that this is going to play out. It's most likely going to start to, dump over the next couple of days, if not by next week. But I'm going to be open minded. I'm going to watch for confirmation before making any calls like that. You understand what I'm saying? You got to look for the confirmation first before even looking at any patterns. So that's the reason why I'm not saying it will dump for sure. I'm going to be waiting for confirmation anyways. So what do I mean by that? If this thing holds, okay, let's just say it opens tomorrow wherever it opens. If it holds 355.5, you're going to be watching 356. That's a very important level. You could see today it tried to get to 356, it failed. If it holds 356 in a strong manner and gets a very strong breakout like this right here, see the strong breakout above that, it's going to fly to 357.5 to 358. However, because of the fact that it's looking a little bit more bearish on the 4-hour time frame, it looks quite bearish, and it is forming, it has this bearish divergence. The odds do favor it cooling off, maybe trading sideways and then eventually cooling off. But I'm going to wait for confirmation for any bigger moves to the downside because it's in this range right now, right? So if you're bearish on this, you're going to be watching 354, then finally 353. And I think, in my opinion, the odds favor that more with the QQQ because of these technicals, but I need to watch for these levels first. If 353 breaks, okay, if we actually break it in a very strong manner, it's very probable this thing is going to test 352 flats, and that's not a very strong support. I don't see it really like bouncing off that like crazy hard. I just think it's going to chop around a little bit before we finally get a bigger break to the downside. And the break below 353 may trigger it. Okay, and it's going to come all the way down to like 350 or something like that, maybe even lower than that. There's this imbalance down here around like 346. It's likely going to do that, and your trigger is going to be, you're going to be watching 353 basically. That's a very important level. Today it had a false break, and it could happen as soon as tomorrow, but we have to watch the level for confirmation. Now I'm just going to briefly go over a couple of others. I was very meticulous with Tesla, SPY, and QQQ. For AMC, let me just note that it's trading sideways. It's basically range bound, but it might make a big move thanks to GME's earnings tomorrow after the market closes. Same thing with GME. For NEO, it's looking pretty good in my eyes. Guys, remember I was telling you, NEO looks good. It's probably going to make its way up to $8. Look what happened today. The market got the false breakout, the false drop, sorry. NEO came down to 7.3. Then it formed another bullish divergence again. So this is the second time it did this. And this thing got bought up all the way up to almost $8. I made a lot of massive moves today, lots of swings. My target on NEO was it approaching 8. It's currently, at the time I'm recording this, it's actually very flat. It has a wick at like 8.32. This could just be a glitch, but it doesn't matter. Overall, it looks to me like it might drop a little bit as momentum is weakening a little bit. It may trade sideways because of the market, but there's a good chance it's going to make its way up to 8.2 plus as we approach earnings. It's looking pretty good. Now, let's just say NEO does not pump too much and it just like trades sideways approaching earnings. There's going to be an increased probability, not a guarantee, but a good chance it's going to make a good move. Maybe earnings is not the best, but guidance, maybe the CEO says something very good about the future and the buyers step in. Something like that could happen, and the odds greatly favor that. You have this imbalance up here. We might see NEO break above $8. I'm leaning more in that direction, either before earnings, approaching it, or maybe even after earnings. But I'm not going to play it. By the way, I'm not going to like put too much money on it. I might just hedge, of course, and just play it later on. I'm just not going to put too much money on it. But just so you guys know, I mean, the technicals look good on Neo for the time being. For the Nasdaq, let's see this. It's still not looking that strong. It's just trading flat, just like the QQQ. It could get a retest of this 50 EMA, but it's about to get a bullish cross in the 30 minutes. So it's very mixed technicals, just going back and forth. All this thing did today is it dumped in the morning, pumped, went back and forth and back and forth. It's likely going to continue to do this. It is getting a little bit tight though, so I'm expecting a big move very soon over the next 2 days. And if anything, I am still like I told you guys, in the 4 hours looking a little bit more bearish. At least the last time I checked it, it is losing some momentum, and it did form a bearish divergence. I think a while back it did form it. So I'm going to be very careful with this. Excuse me, very careful with this. If the QQQ and the Nasdaq start dumping in the future, it's going to have a big effect on tech. It may take a couple of days though, and I do think the odds favor it cooling off, but we gotta wait for that confirmation, just like the QQQ first. The VIX, it's just very, very oversold, and but there's no sign of it bouncing. It's just below 14. It actually broke below the wedge now, so it's just losing it. It's just dropping very, very hard. And for now, we're going to be watching 13.5 to 13.75 as our supports. There's just no sign of it bouncing. For the dollar, it still is relatively high. It's holding up nicely. Typically, this would cause the market to slow down. So far, it has not done that. And we're just going to have to wait and see what this does. If it keeps pumping to very high levels like 105 plus, that could slow down the markets. So far, it hasn't done that. The Coinbase had a lot of big news involving the SEC. I can't really say too much about it. I don't really want to. I just want to note is that the whole thing is a mess, and Coinbase dumped because of it. I warned you guys about some important levels on Coinbase. It gapped down very hard, got a bounce. Uh, I was telling you guys to watch 47, I believe, and if that fails, we had 45. That's where it bounced at. For now, I mean, it still is not giving us any true signals of a nice balance, but there is this imbalance here. So there's a chance it could make its way up to this imbalance zone first. It might cool off first with the market before making its way up slowly, or maybe some other time. But like I said before, it was very oversold when this happened, and it's still showing some strength trying to make its way up because it dropped crazy hard, and there are buyers stepping in. Now, is it going to fill this gap? I mean, that's up to us to decide, and it's going to depend a lot on the markets. If it manages to hold above 54, there's a high probability it's going to try to make its way to fill this gap very close to 57. But you got to watch for that confirmation first. For Aapl, this was looking weak, and I warned you guys about this. The levels I told you were if 180 failed us, we're going to be watching around 178. It ended up touching 177.5, very close to the 50 EMA. I told you if 178 failed us, watch the 50 EMA, and that is where this thing bounced off of. So you're going to be watching that carefully. There is no sign of a bounce on Aapl just yet, a true bounce. Uh, it's going to likely chop around, in my opinion, and you're just going to be watching how it responds to the 50 EMA. If that breaks, it could make its way down to 175. If it bounces, you're going to be watching it retesting 180, then potentially 182.5 again. But like I said, it's just not looking that great. And if it does dump more, it's going to be bad for the markets. For now, very, very flat. Nvidia is in the middle. It's only down 1%. And I told you guys that as Nvidia dropped, I was talking about when it was like down here. I told you it could get a back test. It wasn't looking that bad to me, and we got the back test. It came as I thought it would, and now it's very close to where this wedge was. We got a small break below the wedge, but it's still showing some strength thanks to the markets. If the Nasdaq starts selling off at the QQQ, that's going to be bad for Nvidia. But for now, it's just trying to hold up. I'm going to be looking for a retest of this 390 level. Then after that, we'll see if it could break this resistance. If it breaks it, we could get closer to 395 than 400. If it fails to break it, you're going to be watching support very close to about 385, followed by 381, then 380, then 377. For Google, for bullish, you're going to be watching the bullish case came out. I was telling you it could break above 128 if it broke out. I was leaning a little bit more bearish on this yesterday, but instead the market held up nicely and Google continued to hold up. Now there's no true sign of this thing breaking down just yet. It's still looking strong. And if it keeps pumping, if it breaks the high of the day, you're going to be watching 130. If it fails to do so and it comes down, you're going to be watching support at 127. If that fails us, there is this, once again, this important level very close to the 50 EMA at 124.48, but you're going to need confirmation, so a break below 127, and also, I forgot, the break below 126 will take it to 124.48. For Amazon, if you're bullish on Amazon, it's going to pump all the way up to about, first off, we broke 127 plus. It's going to likely make its way closer to 128. That was the level I was talking about on Amazon if it does break to the upside. If it breaks to the downside, you're going to be watching support around 123.5 and also 124. Right now, technicals are mixed. It has a bearish divergence developing, so be careful with this. But there's no confirmation of it breaking down, and the trend is still looking strong for now. For that reason, it could pump more, but once there's a confirmation of it making a higher, not a higher, a lower low and a lower high, basically, if it starts like trending downwards, that's going to be the confirmation of the break to the downside from the bearish divergence, and it's going to likely come all the way down to this 50 EMA when the time comes. No sign of it just yet. Last but not least for Meta, we're going to be watching this support right here. It has a bearish divergence developing. If it breaks down, you're going to be watching 269 and then 265 as support, followed by 263.09. If you're bullish, you're going to be watching resistance at 274 to 275, and then 276.57. Those are two major resistance zones. Meta is just trading sideways right now. If anything, it's looking a little bit weak on the 4 hour. It looks like it may start downtrending and make its way closer to where the 50 EMA happens to be. But watch for confirmation. That would be a break below 270. If that happens, 269 will come, followed by potentially 265. It is looking a little bit more bearish, but I'm going to be open-minded because it will be dictated by the markets. All right, guys. So for a lot of these stocks, okay, especially the QQQ, it looks weaker. So does the Nasdaq looks weaker than SPY. SPX and SPY have more strength, but I'm always going to be open-minded and watch for confirmation this time around. All right. Tesla also is looking pretty strong, but once again, it's going to be dictated by the QQQ to some degree. That's why always watch for those levels. Always be very careful and do what you have to do. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning for the pre-market update. Thank you all so much for listening. And once again, this is one of those videos where I didn't go too heavy on the predictions. I just, it's very hard to predict when we're range trading like this, and I don't want to be too biased on some of these stickers. I told you guys what QQQ would probably do, but not so much on SPY, what I predict is going to happen. And right now it's very, very mixed. So that's the reason why I did that. I'm not going to always do this. There will be most days where I give you guys my predictions though. But anyways, watch it all carefully and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Market to the moon alongside Tesla as the long term is still incredibly bright. And peace out.